Tim Kawakami wrote in The Athletic today about the 49ers relationship with Jimmy Garoppolo. And one thing he wrote here was this. Yes, the relationship between Garoppolo and Shanahan/Lynch seemed to have gone a bit south in the days or weeks leading up to the NFC Championship game in Philly. I don't know if there was a specific blow-up or conversation that led to this. I don't know what the main issue was. And then he goes on to talk more. You can read more about it in The Athletic. Now, what could you possibly have a disagreement about with an injured player? As far as I can tell, it's only one thing.
Return date.
Yeah.
Or the severity. Remember Mac Jones and Belichick, severity of injury.
Severity of the injury. Jimmy broke his foot week 13. And at the time, they said there's an outside chance he could possibly return. So if there was some disagreement, I guess it could be, hey, Jimmy, I know you're not active anymore, but it'd be great to have you around to help out the young guys. I doubt Kyle would ask Jimmy to do that, right? I don't think, would that bother Kyle if Jimmy weren't around in the meetings as much? Or remember you noticed several weeks ago, like, is Jimmy on the sidelines? Is Jimmy still on this team?
It was a pretty major injury, right? A broken foot. He was going to be out for the foreseeable future. And even talking NFC Championship game at that time, because I remember the first couple weeks were like, could he return for the playoffs? It was just kind of generically. And then as Purdy started doing well, it got a little more specific. Could he come back to the second round? Could he come back for the championship game, Super Bowl? Like, everyone was always trying to put dates on it. And in fairness to Kyle, he never really – he was always, I would say, pretty loose and just open. You know, he was never concrete about, like, we feel very confident mid-January he'll be ready to join the group, right?
He never boxed Jimmy into that.
It was weird because it was just like Purdy or death, because Josh was never really discussed, in fairness, right?
Not externally, but I'd have to think internally the staff had to know. And again, we're like really going, this is kind of conspiracy theory stuff here. But the question is what would have happened that would have soured their relationship in the days or weeks leading up to the NFC Championship game? Like, why is the when here relevant? Because it's not like Kyle and Jimmy were best friends a year ago. So, you know.
But they were friendly enough that.
They were friendly enough, no question. But why is the when here relevant? And I had to think internally, John, don't you think for a franchise that struggles to make it through a season with a starting quarterback playing all 17 games in the postseason, et cetera, they had to know every game they played, and they played, you know, a lot of them, with Josh Johnson one snap away from being on the field. Every game they played like that was a game they were putting their season at risk. And so maybe it wasn't so much about like Jimmy should be back as it was, is it possible Jimmy was rehabbing his foot, a broken foot, which you should not fuck around with a broken foot. You come back too quickly from that, you could ruin your career. Is it possible they thought Jimmy was rehabbing, or that Jimmy was rehabbing to be healthy enough for free agency, and they wanted him to rehab with get healthy as fast as possible because maybe we could use you this year? That, to me, if I'm trying to figure out what could possibly happen, and by the way, I would not hold it against Jimmy if he was trying to get healthy for March 15th, not January 15th. Right?
He was not rehabbing with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind.
An enthusiasm very known to mankind.
Listen, to me, the moment he got hurt and the situation that he was in with $6.5 million, I can't, like, it was over. Like, I always thought the talk of him coming back was, I didn't put much validity to it. I think it was kind of capped off. I guess Tim's writing this, they were already angry at him before, but like Jimmy was in La La Land smiling on the sideline in Philly 28-7. So it's like, I think he was just kind of checked out. Now you could argue if he was completely checked out and the team was checked out on him, why do you even bring him around? Right? Because Trey was already there on the sideline and it had been talked about. You said you had heard Tim Ryan say that, you know, he was helping, him and Purdy were working together. So it's not like Jimmy was also there signaling. I'm not saying Tim's wrong by any means, but if they really were kind of angry at him, would they have brought him on the game? Maybe they were still hoping that there's a chance that if they get to the Super Bowl, he would be willing to do it. Why not? Like, what do you have to lose? It's not like he's a malcontent. right?
Yeah, there's a line between
The
unhappy.
situation was weird. You could argue, like, once he breaks his foot, because it got pretty normal. Once he came back, he became the starting quarterback. And then, but he would still have his Jimmy moments where they were clearly weren't in love with his play. Let's not act like he was lighting the world on fire, when he was playing. I do just wonder if he broke his foot, like most human beings, as Kyle said after, remember he said in this press conference, like, it's over. Maybe that's what Tim's also alluding at, like why he was so aggressively saying like it's over. Like he doesn't even want to fucking.
He was very dismissive, right? Like, no, it's over. Now it could be as simple as Jimmy. It could be if you're going to go. Well, maybe Jimmy told him, like, guys, I got to go somewhere else. But it felt like it was Kyle saying, under no circumstances.
Was it last year when asked about it? Like, was that when Kyle gave the quote, like, we don't even know if we're all going to be alive tomorrow?
Yes, that was last.
When they're trying to, like, could Jimmy be back? And he's like, I can't. I don't know.
Was that? Yeah, that was last offseason.
Because they were asked a lot of questions last offseason about the trade. Remember, it was like, when are you going to trade him? How are you going to trade him? When's he going to get traded? Is he going to clear? What's he going to clear? And that was really more questions about Jimmy Garoppolo, I would say, leading up to the draft than anything Trey related. Because it was just, what could they get for this guy? Could they get a second-round pick? Could they get a third-round pick? And those guys are like, we don't even have offers. And, then he got the surgery and it got weird. They've been in a roller coaster business relationship with this guy for a couple of years.
Julian Edelman on the I Am Athlete podcast. We go into week 4 and Jimmy was practicing and then just decided not to play. Jacoby played with no ligaments in his thumb, which you can't do that as a quarterback. You can't grip. And it's your shoulder with Jimmy. Remember that? Maybe it was Martellus Bennett said something, and then Edelman kind of backed it up.
I would say the only thing I would push back on that, not saying obviously it happened, Julian was there, is he was young. He was trying to prove himself. He did prove with the 49ers last year playing through injuries. Right? He had a fucked up thumb and a fucked up shoulder. And he played. So, now he was getting paid a lot of money. So it's a little different. Remember, he was just a late second round pick, trying to eventually become a starter. I do wonder if we looked at all these different, does some players approach some of these? I mean, look at Lamar. He just tapped out.
Here's what you can't deny.
I'm just saying when I've experienced him last year, he played through injuries, not very well, but he did.
Yeah. But I would say like Lamar, you mentioned Lamar. What you can't deny is when your quarterback is not your long-term quarterback or your quarterback's not under contract for a long time, when there's a lot of money on the line, your motivations and your quarterback's motivations, or just any player's motivations, may not be the same. And the 49ers, now through 6 years of the Kyle Shanahan era, and still not having a franchise quarterback, you open yourself up to situations where what the team wants is not what the player wants, and what's best for the player is to do something that may not be what's best for the team, because the player then puts their career at risk for a team that has not reciprocated, right? Yeah. And here's Mahomes on a 10-year. Now maybe who knows? Maybe all these situations are different. A high ankle sprain is not a broken foot, but here's Mahomes on a 10-year contract, not going anywhere for the foreseeable future, doing whatever it takes to stay on the field with the Kansas City Chiefs.
Well, he was actually the opposite of players and coaches, right? He actually was acting like the coach, like, I'm not leaving this game. And the coaches are like, go to the locker room.
And why are the coaches doing that? Because
we got you for 10 years.
Exactly. They need him healthy for the big picture.
Yeah.
So this is whatever's going on, whatever happened with Jimmy and Kyle, it is somewhat a result of the fact that the Niners don't have a franchise quarterback. They have not found one yet. Maybe it's Brock, and hell, Trey's. It's one of my things this offseason. We'll talk more about it.
Wouldn't you say the Jalen, I mean, he's battling injuries, but in his mind, he probably feels like, I'm going to be here with the Eagles for long term. I think Jeffrey Lurie even hinted at that because he doesn't have a contract yet, but he's battling through an injury.
Right.
It feels like Purdy's hesitant or going through and maybe this is human nature when you have an injury of, that level of going, can I avoid surgery? Because I don't want to give up my spot. Because ultimately I want to get to the spot where they have to treat me like that. Yeah. Because I know that I can just get Wally pipped.
Right. He should not be looking at it like we've given him the job if he's healthy based on what we think he can do. But if I were him, I'd look at it like he probably is, which is Trey Lance is young. He hasn't played. They drafted this guy highly. If I'm hurt, they have no choice but to believe in him. And I don't want to give them that option. And they're saying, oh, bro, we believe in you so much. Go get that surgery. But easier said than done when it's not you in that spot. And so who knows what Garoppolo's health would have been. But if you told me the story was Jimmy was rehabbing for March 15th, not Jan 15, I'd go, yeah, that makes sense.
I played golf with a guy over this last month that lives by the street where the Mr. Irrelevant parade goes down.
In Coronado Island?
Yeah, or kind of like down the street, but
Yeah.
like in the general vicinity. Because
Yeah.
Purdy came up and he brought up the Mr. Irrelevant parade.
Yeah.
Comes right down by his house.
I remember this last offseason watching the Niners put out like a 9-minute video on the Mr. Irrelevant celebrations. And it's like Brock and like some just like kayaks with random people. It's like part of the event. It's very weird. Why they raise money for a local charity. I think maybe Terry Donahue, the former UCLA coach, was very involved in it once upon a time. At Coronado Island, it's a very wealthy area. It's a big fundraiser in that area. There's no connection between Mr. Relevant and Coronado Island. There's no reason for it. It's not like the mayor or some guy who built, some local builder there was once Mr. Relevant. There's no reason. It's kind of genius from a marketing standpoint. And it's kind of fun. Like this guy who got picked last gets to have this little celebration in his honor, but that's funny. That's very funny. Corey says, my questions about Kyle aren't about his coaching. It's whether he's a leader, the lack of full support for Lance, the Jimmy situation, the doghouses, his injury responses. Can't say that I like him. That's what Corey says. Kyle's answer, the last question, when Jason Cole just said, hey, man, what? All your quarterbacks get hurt. Like, he didn't even say, what's the deal? He just said, like, is this a pattern that you're aware of? And Kyle's just like, they all get hurt in different ways.
I think he has a lot of great qualities. One, he's a really good coach, and clearly he's a really good leader. And he's been very, very successful, right? Very successful. When he loses, and I'd say Harbaugh's not a great loser. I think Jim's gotten better with age. Just watching him in Michigan losing. He wasn't Mr. Smiley either after losses when he was the Niner coach. But Kyle, unlike Jim, was clearly not going to be here long. Kyle, you're not going anywhere. I think he could just resonate a little bit more with the consumer who desperately wants to just go to the mat for him and just give a little. Like, it's not about Jason Cole or everyone sitting in that room. You're speaking to everyone else and just say, guys, I screwed up. Because everyone will be like, I knew it. Thank God. He can admit it.
But
I never admit anything.
I agree with everything you just said. So this is what I'm.
John Lynch is fantastic at it.
Yeah, I'm about to say and, not but. And it's not just that it's lip service. It's also, could we just acknowledge that maybe there's a little flaw in the system? Maybe that it's not a flawless system. Andy doesn't run the ball. We'll see. Not a flawless system. Pretty good system. Not flawless, right? We'll see if it costs him Super Bowl. If Andy loses the Super Bowl, I mean, we'll have lost a lot of big games. Will he lose big games? Because what are you supposed to do against this Eagles team? Run the ball. Well, the Chiefs can't run the ball. Is that going to cost them this Super Bowl? It might. It might cost them the Super Bowl, right?
Good, yeah. I'd say Andy's a little more consistently, since he's been with the Chiefs, happier. Just happy.
Well, he's winning a lot more. He won a lot in Philly. He's winning even more in Kansas City.
True. But there's a happy-go-lucky vibe to him sometimes.
Yeah, he got his ring. It feels like maybe he's got
we get it. You work long hours. You're up early. No one's acting like you're lazy. No one's acting like you don't know what you're doing. No one's acting like the players don't like you. No one's acting like you haven't built a successful team. Just occasionally, it's like, yeah, I fucked up, man. You don't even have to say it. I don't even know how you would verbalize it, but just be like, yeah. If I knew what was going to happen, I would have called a different play.
You can fake your way through that answer without meaning it so easily.
He doesn't have.
But I don't want him to fake it. I want to have an honest conversation about, is it possible that matchup?
No, he doesn't believe that.
Is suboptimal, as the internet would like to say.
Nope.
Problematic, as the internet.
Joe Thomas, Mitchell Schwartz. Think you run that play every day of the week and 10 more times against the Birds.
Yeah. Croft or Croft or Anthony Munoz. I'm calling that play no matter who's blocking over there. Same guy.
We coached it up the right way. We told him to put his hands inside and chop his feet.
You guys don't understand. It was going to set up another play 7 plays from now. You guys didn't see the big picture. You don't see the big picture.